Hey David, how are you doing today?
I am great. Yourself?
I'm doing great as well. Just excited to talk about Surrogate with you.
Me too.
I just wanted to say welcome to the Nerdy Basement. My name is John Ramos. So, David, just needed to ask you because I gotta say, I finished the film and I was mesmerized. My jaw dropped, and I got a lot of a lot of feelings going on because I did not expected that ending. I gotta say,
Great to hear.
um, yes, because it's something that we'll talk more ahead because there's a question behind that. But
Yeah.
it's really interesting how everything pans out on your film, and then you expect one thing because you're like, this is what's going to be happening, because it's something that us as audience go ahead and think, and then
Mm.
the twist happens and you're like, okay, I'm intrigued to what's going on and how this
Mm.
ended. So, going to that, what inspired you to bring us Surrogate?
Well, I mean, the idea originally came from a brainstorming session with my co-writer Beth King, and we were just throwing around different ideas for. We wanted to do either an indie horror or an indie crime thriller. And essentially, we've got a little bit of those worlds crossing over because there's a bit of a lay detective story in there, and it was really Beth and I just really big fans of horror, and we had a lot of different screenplays we'd written separately in various stages of development. But I said to her, let's write something that we can just make and it can happen, rather than getting caught up in that development process that usually, sometimes takes 10 years.
Okay. So, how is it working with Beth King? Because now you mentioned that it was a back and forth with both of you, but is
Mm.
how is it that you work with Beth in regards to, having such a something that takes a lengthy progress, and you guys went ahead and say, "Hey, this is going to be our little movie."
Yeah, I mean, we script edited on uh, each other's feature films and TV series in the past, and really what it was about is that we're both really big horror fans. And so our process writing together was really about brainstorming and focusing on the story. So we brainstormed a whole bunch of ideas and we came up with about six or seven. And then we whittled it down and decided to pursue what would become Surrogate. And our process then was just how we're going to develop the stories and the characters. So we didn't jump into writing the screenplay straight away. And we would just meet a couple of times a week for a few hours. We brainstorm different ideas back and forward, and then we would just start to develop the story. And Beth would get some TV writing gigs, and I would get some directing gigs. So we'd take a few months off and we'd come back. And then it was really just back and forward with script editing each other's scenes once we were writing the screenplay.
Oh wow. So you guys worked on Surrogate while still working on other projects.
Yeah, we would do it in between. So we'd have a couple of months, and then we said
Wow.
Beth would have a few months off, and then we'd come back. But that space is really helpful sometimes to give you perspective, because you come back to it and you can see a bit clearer what's working, what's not, and just sometimes letting it bubble away in your subconscious is really helpful.
Hmm. So I can actually say to you that I am a horror. I'm not gonna say a horror enthusiast, but I do like watching horror. It's one of my genres that I like to consume more. Plus, that every October is like the month to like get back
Mm.
to seeing classic horror plus new horror. And I gotta say, from my perspective as an audience, I gotta say that this film did scare me a lot. uh, and,
Excellent.
and the thing is that the reason why I say it is because I recently watched back to back a lot of horror films, and I was like, you know what, it's okay, it's not what I expected. But then watching Surrogate, uh, it was like 12 o'clock at in midnight, and I'm watching the movie next to my wife. My wife is sleeping. I'm like, Just breathing in because I'm scared. I just wanted to scream sometimes, because there's some intricate scenes there that I was like, I did not expected this. But
Yeah.
going to that filming aspect, did you have any difficulty filming Surrogate?
Um, First of all, I'm glad it's scaring you so much. I mean, the tough bit with horror is that's the effect you want to have, but like with any genre, it's not, a comedy, not everybody laughs at
Yeah.
the comedy. So you know that whatever film you're making is a horror, not everyone's going to find it scary, but a lot of people have found Surrogate scary, which is really good because that's what you're after. And we discovered that when we're watching it in cinemas with the audiences. That's what was so great, seeing their reactions. And one woman actually passed out at the world premiere of it, which
Oh
which was
wow.
which was quite a moment. So in terms of filming, I mean, the difficulty is like with any shoot is just you don't have enough time and money, no matter how big your budget and schedule is. And what was probably unique to Surrogate that I hadn't had with other films that I've directed is that with child actors, is they can only be on set for 8 hours a day, and they
Okay.
can't be on set after 11 p.m. So you've got a short window period to shoot their scenes on the day, and that's what that creates some difficulties because if you go the schedule with adults, you can just keep going, but we hit a point where it's like they have to leave the set. So we just had certain days where the Tasha, who played the young daughter, there's a few scenes where she just had to leave after we shot her close ups, and so Kestie, our lead actress, is doing those scenes with someone just reading off camera.
Okay.
And it's a real testament. She's such an incredible actress that you really you can't tell. And it's not an ideal situation to put an actress in, but that's the child labor laws, which are fair enough.
Oh wow, I actually did not know that child actors or actors had to stay in just a few hours while
Yeah.
filming. Wow, I did not know that. That's interesting. Uh you know,
Yeah, I mean it's unique because no other industry can with the three girls and 9 year olds, there's no other industry where they can be working. So the laws are set up to I guess protect, not to overwork them or put them through too
mhm.
much each day.
Okay, yeah, I can see the reasons why. Um
Mm.
so I wanted to ask you, what would be your do you have any scary moments or funny moments that happen on set while filming?
Um, Probably one of probably the freakiest moment happened
Mhm.
during auditions actually,
Oh god.
and and we and we do have this on tape, so we're going to put it on the Blu-ray release. So Malcolm, who is the guy in the big set piece in the seance, so the
Mhm.
guy who plays the father in the seance, he at his audition, he was just running it through the first time as he's explaining the mirrors, and he's like, this is the good one. But if a ghost appears in this one, this is the evil one. As he said that, the lights just cut out in the room.
Oh god.
And everything went pitch black. And we were doing the auditions. It was in a band room, so there's no mirror, windows,
Oh
doors. It was just
lord.
black. Yeah, and the camera was still rolling, so everyone sort of freaked out for a moment.
Oh god, that had to be so awesome at the same time so scary. Oh lord.
Yeah, it
Oh.
was like a perfectly timed prank if that's what we're gonna do. So
So going to that, do you have any favorite scene on Surrogate that you just take to heart as you ended filming?
yeah, it's I mean, the seance is sort of that's the real standout in the film because it's such a protracted scene, and watching that in the cinema was incredible experience, watching how the audience would get dragged into the scene and the atmosphere of it. And it's that scene where everyone is firing. The production designer Bianca did an incredible job with the mirrors and the chairs, and Ben, our cinematographer, lit it beautifully, and obviously the performances are great. And even then, Sasha and who's our sound designer, and Mark Byers, our composer, really just came in and put that, the final icing on the
Mm-hmm.
cake for that scene. So yeah, I do enjoy that. And there's some of the other stuff getting near the climax scene. There's a couple of really big sort of climactic moments that were very intense to film, but I really love the way that they came across on screen.
Yeah, I gotta say that scene with the seance and everything going on, that was one of the scenes that I was like mostly freaking out at night. Yes, last night at 12 o'clock at midnight, because I was like, every time the little girl was looking at the bat mirror, I'm like, yep, jump scare is gonna happen. Jump scare is gonna happen. And then it didn't happen. I'm like, okay, I'm calm. And when it happened, yeah, my phone went flying. I gotta say, my phone went flying. I was so scared because I was like, I was expecting it, because it's something that you already know in your subconscious
Yeah.
because of all the horror films you see, and then you're like, okay, it didn't happen, we're good, and then it happens, and then you're scared. You know what I mean? Um,
Very much so. And yeah, and we didn't. It's where the audience is kind of expecting that to come from, and by delaying or playing around with that, yeah, I think it worked really well. And Beth and I are not fan of constant jump scares in a horror film. It gets pretty tedious. But that one, it's where you'd expect stuff to be happening, it's not happening, but delivers a bit later, and that's why it was so good watching your audience trying to
oh yeah.
anticipate but getting caught out.
Oh yeah. I wish that was like making a live reaction watching the film, and I think people would be laughing.
Yeah.
you know
Should do that, yeah.
So, David, I just wanted to ask you this question
Mm.
because this will piggyback on another one that I want to like pick your brain a little bit. So,
Yeah.
not going into spoilers,
Mm.
but why the twist in the end? I know that I know that it's kind of difficult not going into spoilers, but you know, why that twist in the end of the film? I'm not gonna
Mm.
say the reasons why, because again, we just want to maintain that like people, go ahead and watch it.
Yeah.
What made you and Beth decide to write this ending like it is in the film?
Yeah, it's interesting. There's been a lot of talk about the ending, and that's had a lot of effect on audiences when they've watched it. And uh, I can't wait for a bit further down the track where we can just get into all the spoilers and details on it. So we'll try to get through it without, being a little bit cryptic. But when we're writing the screenplay, we actually came up with, in the end, about 5 different endings. So the original
Oh wow.
screenplay had a different ending, and ultimately, not only was it sort of the most appropriate ending for the film, Beth and I sort of like endings that are not as neat and nice and clean, might be the best way to describe it. So, we're big fans of Exorcist, and
Okay.
it's such a complicated ending, and I like complicated endings because it's the priest has had to commit suicide to save the girl, so essentially he's consigned himself to hell potentially. So it's a very like unsettling ending, and Ring has a very similar unsettling feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
You're not giving the audience just an easy way out. And possibly, another one is Grudge, which I really like that. And the end of Grudge is really bleak. That's just going to keep going and going. So when we hit onto that idea on just to leave it where the audience is quite unsettled about the outcome, rather than it just being a clean cut one, we thought would have the most impact, and it just seemed like the right way to go with it.
Okay, yeah, because again, it's like I mentioned, it's something that I was not expecting. Like
Yeah.
when I finished the film, I was like, internally, I was like, yeah, this is not what I expected to be the ending, and it's
Mm.
like you mentioned, it's unsettling. I want to
Yeah.
pick your brain. Why? Because it is something that I've been doing in my interviews, is because I like to see your perspective of a scene. There's
Mhm.
this scene that I really do like, and it's because it goes moving forward, ending, I would guess, act 2 to going
Yeah.
fully to the final act. Natalie finds Lisa's body.
Yeah.
There's a relief in that scene.
Yeah.
Can you explain or give us a little bit much more detail? Because this is why I say that the ending is so unsettling, because I want to know how you guys managed to make the audience feel like the movie or the film is done, but when it cuts to black, it's really not done.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really glad you picked up on that, and I mean, there's really a couple of things within that. I mean, Seven is one of my favorite films as well, and I remember watching that in the cinema. And when John Doe gives himself up at the, what's the second act turn, it's just like, oh my god, where is this story going now? And Ring really reworked that structure of discovering that either the body or essentially righting the wrong, but three-quarters of the way through the story, and then it leaves that last act to where are we going now in the story. And I think, is it called The Woman in Black with Daniel Radcliffe, uses a similar structure as well, or is it The Lady in Black? I always mix it up. There's a film with
I
each
I
title, and
I think it's The Woman in Black, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, and that uses a similar story mechanism. And so that's been around a little while, and some films use that convention, and we really liked it. And yeah, the audience is kind of relieved for a moment, but then it ramps back up.
No, yeah,
And
like I gotta say that's why I had to ask, because
yeah,
there's this sense of relief. You
yeah,
cut to black, and then there's the final act, and you're like, "What's going on?" You know what I mean? So
yeah.
it's like, wow, you guys nailed it. Like, again,
Thank you.
I scared myself to death
Yeah.
yesterday. So
I think also with on that, even not that it's the same genre, but Chinatown I really like. And again, that's like at the second act turn, he sort of solves the
yeah,
mystery, and then you go, wow, it's such a thrilling moment. But now, generally speaking, if things go well at the end of the second act, you're in a bit of trouble when you go into the third act.
exactly. Yeah, I totally agree. So I have two more
Mm,
questions. One
yeah.
of them is, if by any chance you have plans to bring this mythos back again.
Yeah, look, it wasn't our intention when we're writing it. Horror is the domain of sequels and franchises, as it is. And even if a horror ends in a way that there is
Yeah,
no sequel, they find a way to make it happen. So we have been sort of playing around with some ideas of what direction we could take another version of that in. We've been, because we had a small theatrical release in Australia, and now we're the online distribution at the moment. We've been very kind of caught up in that, but we've just started feeling around with some ideas on where that could go. So
that's amazing. So the other thing, David, is I know that you're working fully on with Surrogate on the release and everything, but do you have any other upcoming projects or anything that you can give us, like in details or small little nitpicks, like, hey, I'm gonna be working on this, but I can't tell you.
yeah, I said there's a couple of things we're writing at the moment. One might be an offshoot of, sorry, we're playing around with some ideas with Ava and Malcolm, the characters in
Okay.
in the seance. And um, yeah, we're really in the next month or two. Actually, my time starts to free up a little bit more to work on some new other projects that are coming along the way. So hopefully we'll have some announcements on them pretty shortly.
Awesome, awesome. So, David, I want to thank you very much for giving us your time to talk about Surrogate. I gotta say, it was an amazing film,
Thank
and
you.
anybody that's watching us, as soon as you see that poster or that name, just go ahead, click it, watch it, rent it. I don't know, just do anything to watch Surrogate. amazing horror film. And David, again, thank you very much for giving us your time to talk about the film.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on, and thank you for your kind words. I'm really glad it had that effect on you.
Oh yeah, no, I'm gonna say as soon as it's ready to be rent, I'm gonna tell my wife to watch it with me, like that I can get her reaction. So so thank you very much for being part of the Nerdy Basement. Everybody that's watching us, we will see you in the next one.
Catch you later.